All right, hey, what's up, YouTube? We got about 2 minutes before this thing's gonna start, so gotta wait for this this music to stop. Goes on for like 3 minutes, I think. So just give us a second here. Sorry. This is an old intro from a different show, and so it still plays. Still got another 2 minutes. Next week, I'm just gonna start the show right at the end here. All right, let's get ready. Here we go. All right, we're about to be from behind the door.
Welcome to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, and this is
My name's Jimmy, and Into the Microcosm on the air.
You see that my behavior is unacceptable, so condescending, unnecessary, critical. I have the tendency of getting very physical, so watch your step, cause if I do, you need a miracle. You drain me dry and make me wonder why I'm even here. The double vision I was seeing is finally clear. You want to stay, but you know very well I want you gone. I'm fit to fucking tread the ground that I am walking on. The panic is cold outside, and I got nobody to love. You'll understand what I mean when I say there's no way we
Oh, yeah. Monday. And for the next 2 hours, my name's Jimmy, and I'll be your friendly guide through the jungle known as reality. Chopping my way through. I am Tarzaning through the jungle just for you, ladies and gentlemen, for the next 2 hours. Want to welcome you, Revolution Radio, into the new year 2020. We had a great interview on Friday night, which we're going to be revisiting. We've got a bunch of people listening in from Zoltan, Esteban's Twitter feed. Want to say welcome, everybody. If you've never been to Revolution Radio before, welcome in, and come on over and join us in the chat room. Hey, Canadian. freedomslips.com is the place to be. Head on over, get in the chat room. Interactive discussion going on. Many smart people, many smart asses as well. Always a good time in there. Just keep your hands and feet inside the cart before you get in, so you don't get anything chopped off. You've obviously gotten small enough to get through the door. Then it's time for Into the Microcosm. And tonight, we have a very special smorgasbord planned for the evening, for the next couple of hours. Yeah, thanks, Philip. I believe me, I will. But in the meantime, I was taking a look at the year 1979. Hey, cat dog girl. Yesterday, and I ran across some really interesting footage in a documentary, but it was the way it was pieced together. It was sort of pieced together where they were sort of going through 5 or 6 different main subject lines that were happening in 1979. Very important things happened in 79 that I completely forgot about. I completely forgot about. I mean, I remember 3 Mile Island, but I don't, I don't remember it, precisely. I remember these things happening, but I don't remember them in the detail that I was, brought to my attention yesterday. Because I was looking at the whole fall of the Shah, I was looking at the installation of the Ayatollah, and really that was an instrumental moment in time as far as where we sit today, because it was what happened there in those moments, and subsequently, throughout the rest of what's happened. I've got some footage. I put this together yesterday to get it ready for the show, and it got actually taken down by YouTube, which was one of the first. Hey, B5, what's going on, man? It's one of the first videos that I've had actually taken down. I mean, they literally took it away. It's not there anymore. And so, and they gave me some reason. I'm not really sure what it was, what the real reason was. They said that the video was scam advertising. They said it was fake advertising. So I appealed it. We'll see if it comes back. But in the meantime, let's get into some 1979.
It's astounding. Time is fleeting. Madness takes its toll. But listen closely.
Not for very much longer.
I've got to keep control.
I remember doing the time war, drinking those moments when the blackness would hit me, and the voice would be calling. Let's do the time war again.
In the late 1970s, the world was in turmoil.
It sure was.
Never before had so many people taken to the streets. Millions of demonstrators demanded more democracy, greater freedom, higher wages, and world peace. And across the globe, women were calling for equal rights. But all these hopes seemed to take a back seat in a world shackled to the ongoing confrontation between the United States and the Soviet Union. There appeared to be little alternative to the two political blocs. The Cold War had the world firmly in its grip. The West was still feeling the after effects of the oil crisis of the early 1970s. Economic growth had slowed and unemployment was steadily rising. The post-war boom had come to an end. In Britain, James Callaghan's Labour government came under pressure from its financial obligations to the International Monetary Fund, but also from a seemingly endless series of strikes that had paralysed the country. In Eastern Europe, Poland remained under Soviet rule. The Polish economy was in crisis and the country was still scarred by the harsh suppression of the workers' strikes of 1970. But the election of...
So it's interesting because at this particular time, England was under what they termed this. Okay, so this footage is from when this happened, basically, and so what they're just casually calling austerity measures was serious pain. Austerity measures placed on them by the World Bank, which we got familiar with during the 2008 stock market debacle. We found out about that. So we found out about the austerity measures that were put on countries. So basically, the way they described it in here, I don't know if it's going to play out before we get into this information, because I got some specific pieces of this put aside, but basically what it was saying was all these different countries in Europe at the same time Britain was going through this downtrodden into the abyss of poverty. Their buying power for their dollar was only up 16%, whereas France, Italy, and Germany were all up. France was up 96% or something like that. Some unbelievable number, and all these other countries were wealthy, yet England was being hammered by these austerity measures. And so there was all this unemployment going on, and there was a lot of turmoil, not just in the United States, but also all around the world.
Polish Cardinal Karol Wojtyła as Pope in 1978 kindled fresh hope. China was drained after 30 years of oppressive Maoist rule. In December 1978, the Chinese Communist Party entrusted the fate of the country to Deng Xiaoping, who was already in his 70s. In Iran, the brutal Western-oriented dictatorship...
The changing of the guard in China was key, because that guy was the guy that started the whole China that we see today. It was all as a matter of what happened with this visit, the first visit from the Chinese premier into the United States. He was hanging out with Carter.
Shah was under huge pressure from demonstrations that were tipping over into revolt. Although US President Jimmy Carter still saw Iran as an island of stability, hundreds of thousands of Iranians were challenging the security forces and the army on the streets of Tehran, demanding an end to the Shah's rule. At the dawn of 1979, it seemed the world was ready to erupt. But the four leaders of the major Western nations, the United States, France, the United Kingdom, and West Germany, appeared unconcerned as they met on Guadeloupe in the French Antilles. They were unaware that the location of their meeting was only a few kilometers away from La Soufrière, a smoldering volcano.
They're inferring that this volcano is about to blow, and that's why they're having this meeting. So now this is a key moment, because the Ayatollah was in seclusion in France for 14 years, So who knows what was going on with him then? I mean, he appears to me, from what I'm seeing, it looks like the Ayatollah was an operator, because well, let's get into it and see.
Officially, the four heads of state gathered in Guadeloupe were preparing for the upcoming G7 summit in Tokyo, smiling reassuringly for the cameras in their shirt sleeves. In reality, the mood was far less serene. In Iran, the situation had become untenable. As international protests condemned the Shah's dictatorship, the country was sinking into chaos, and oil production had almost completely stopped. France was eager to be rid of an embarrassing guest they had been hosting for several months, the exiled Iranian cleric Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini. The four heads of state came to a decision. The Shah would have to resign and leave Iran, and the aging cleric, who they knew little about, would be allowed to return to stabilize the country and preserve the economic interests of the West.
I heard about the Guadeloupe conference. I think it was there that they decided that if the Shah goes and Khomeini comes, it's not such a disaster for the West.
All of a sudden, the mainstream of media, they started talking about Khomeini as a big shot, as a big, actually, fighter of the Shah, which it was not.
There was this great propaganda strategy, and the European media fell into the trap because that image was really too idyllic, almost like a Garden of Eden.
They're showing the Ayatollah, and everybody's dressed in black. He's praying on a giant prayer rug.
Khomeini never failed to state that everything he did would be determined by Islam.
He had always dreamt of a state in which Sharia law would rule. A very important part of it was the rights of women, the family law, and everything. That was why he had been sent into exile, because he had objected to the right of women to vote.
On French television, Khomeini was asked who would rule Iran when the Shah was gone.
No, it won't be me. We'll choose a council, and in this council, there will be a parliament elected by universal suffrage.
That was the big lie he did. But the majority at that time, they believe it. They said, okay, it's very good unity between all part of the society together for changing the system.
The day the Shah left, there were people out on the streets with placards saying, the Shah left, the Shah has gone, the Shah has left, and everything. And it was just an expression of joy.
Okay,
we were in
so
a group. We were always in the streets.
So Tehran, right now, the way they're showing it here on the screen is Tehran looks just like it looked today. People out in the streets, people dressed in black, people just out in the streets.
The streets were absolutely packed, and there was a huge sense of solidarity. All this had quite a euphoric effect.
This is something that Iranians have been waiting for many, many years. And today you can see the reaction. This is the reaction of people who are just overwhelmed by what has happened. What is the meaning of this? The meaning is that they're hoping that they will be a free country from now on.
And I was standing outside Tehran University with some other people in a line to watch this. And then this man standing next to me, a working class man, he stretched out his hand and held my hand. And he said, now we are one and the same people. That was the spirit of the revolution.
I am happy. Very happy. Shah in Iran.
An oppressive system had fallen down. The army and the police and the secret police.
So, just to put it in context, the people now have torn down the statue of the Shah, and they're stepping on his face, and it looks exactly the same as the scene that we saw when Saddam Hussein was toppled in the Second Gulf War. It looks exactly the same. Yeah, I mean, literally, I'll drop the link in the chat so you guys can see it for yourselves. My name's Jimmy. It's in the Microcosms Revolution Radio. We're Time Warp in 1979.
And all of them were not effective anymore. There was absolutely no power from above imposed on the population. So it was total freedom.
Everybody was so friendly to each other. Everybody was helping each other. Everybody was caring for the other. And still, when I think, really, I'll get so excited and I'm very happy.
All right, I'm going to jump ahead here because we don't have much time. We're going to get into some of the future, but since we're here dwelling in the past, I want to make sure that we definitely touch on this. Here we go.
Alternative to the old bipolar world of the Cold War. As fate would have it, they struck a chord with the president of the world's leading nuclear power.
I want to talk to you right now about a fundamental threat to American democracy. The threat is nearly invisible in ordinary ways. It is a crisis of confidence. For the first time in the history of our country, a majority of our people believe that the next 5 years will be worse than the past 5 years. This is not a message of happiness or reassurance, but it is the truth, and it is a warning.
Shortly after, Jimmy Carter would face humiliation by the takeover of the US Embassy in Tehran, marking the final blow to his presidency. But in his address to the nation, he began to use words that have since become an established part of political vocabulary. He reassured Americans by calling upon past greatness, traditional values, and of course, God's help.
We are at a turning point in our history. All the traditions of our past, all the lessons of our heritage, all the promises of our future point to another path. The path of common purpose and the restoration of American values. That path leads to true freedom for our nation and ourselves. We can take the first steps down that path to develop America's own alternative sources of fuel, from coal, from oil shale, from plant products for gasohol, from unconventional gas, from the sun. But we can succeed only if we tap our greatest resources: America's people, America's values, and America's confidence. With God's help, and for the sake of our nation, it is time for us to join hands in America.
Saddam Hussein had taken over the reins of Iraq on July 16, 1979. He saw himself as the secular leader of a country that was also the most important.
Okay, I want to highlight this particular section here, and then we can move on, ladies and gentlemen. But this is key. Listen to this information, because this is evidence of the social engineering that's been going on for a long time around this issue. This has been going on for a while. Here we go. It's a good thing I didn't hit that.
An ally in the Middle East alongside Saudi Arabia. He likewise called upon God as he challenged Khomeini in neighboring Iran.
So all these leaders, these world leaders, are all of a sudden calling on God. So the tone politically has taken a turn into the religious discussion and the religious reasons behind what's going on, making this a religious conflict.
Saddam called for a war against what he saw as the expansionism of the Iranian Revolution. Aiming to dominate the region himself, he exploited the ancient sectarian antagonism between Iranian Shiites and Iraqi Sunnis. On September 22, 1980, the Iraqi army entered Iran, where Ayatollah Khomeini was still struggling to establish his authority. For him, the Iraqi aggression offered the chance to finally and permanently consolidate his legitimacy. Forcing all Iranians to unite behind a nationalist call for a holy war against Iraq, Khomeini ultimately stabilized.
So it's the same call, except for now the enemy will be America, not Iraq. So this is a replay.
His Islamic Revolution. Iranian war propaganda even used women clad in black veils as the new heroines of a nation where everyone had to be prepared for armed combat and ready for the ultimate sacrifice against a mortal enemy. The war that Saddam and his Saudi Arabian allies had hoped to end within a few days would last for 8 years.
My name's Jimmy.
Who's that whispering in the trees? It's two sailors and they're only pipes and chains and swinging hands. Who's your daddy? Yes, I am. That cat came to play. Now you can't run fast enough. You best stay away when the pushers come to shove. Shoot some riot. Throw back a bottle of beer. Shoot some riot. A bullet home through your cold black hair. Shoot some riot. Throw back a bottle of beer. Shoot some riot. A bullet home through your cold black hair. Blow daddy.
Go cat, go. Mom's Jimmy. It's Revolution Radio, Monday. That's right. Live. So 1979 was an influential period of time. I think you're gonna see a whole bunch of stuff. You're gonna see people protest. I mean, anything goes down, the war happens. Millennials ain't gonna be behind that. They're not gonna. I mean, it's gonna be, the '60s on steroids. Because you have all these antagonistic type groups that have surfaced. The Antifas, these different groups, these Soros organizations that'll be busting. Anything goes down in the Straits of Hormuz and gas goes up. I mean, Trump's number one jewel in his presidency that he's proud of is the economy. So we'll see what happens. I don't know, but I do know this. Revolution Radio is the number one listener-supported radio network in the world. We have Studio A, we have Studio B. We don't run commercials here, as you can see. The only way that we keep going is by the generous contributions of the listeners. So if you have an inclination, there's something here that you like and you want to help support us, one of the last bastions of free speech, right here, Revolution Radio, head on over to freedomslips.com, and you can see right there There's a few ways you can get involved, and if you don't have anything to give monetarily, don't put yourself in a position, but spread the word. Tell people where they can find the variety of shows and information that go on here, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on 2 studios. It's almost like you get 2 studios in one, and no matter what time of day or night, there's always something interesting going on. Lots of talented presenters, researchers, and creative folks all gathered up here at Revolution Radio. And I'm super stoked to be a part of what's going on over here. So without further ado, we talked to Zoltan Esteban on Friday night. And I'm going to be getting into that interview again for those of you who weren't up super late that you couldn't hear it. And like I said, Zoltan also sent out a tweet that we were going to be broadcasting today. So there's probably a bunch of new listeners. Want to welcome everybody. If you're new, just head on over to freedomslips.com. There's a chat room over there. You just jump in there, get involved. As a matter of fact, before I get rolling, let me just roll in here and say hello to everybody in the chat. Seven's in there. Hey, Seven. Hey, Batsman. And Blasphemous Buddha. What's up, Canadian? Long time no see. Phillips in there. Wild Bob's in there. Gina P's in there. What's up, Janap? CH Divine Dirt's in there. What's up, Dirt? Hey, Shy. RD47. Jer Bear's in there. May Street. Simply Red. SJ. B5's in there somewhere. There's a whole bunch of people here. Let me get the visitors list. So let me see. B5. Shy's in there. Let me see. SJ, Mr. Rowe, Omega Logos, Grog, Jurist. What's up? LB, Hammerhead. Nice to see everybody. So like I said, head on over to freedomslips.com and you can join the chat room. It's always, like I said, a lively discussion over there. So what I'm going to do is, like I said, I'm going to get into the Zoltan interview. But before I do, I want to get into a little bit of an interesting chunk of information that I think, if you're interested in the future, in the near term, if you're interested in what's going to be happening, I would say if anything does go down here in the United States, if there's any false flaggery or any of this noise that happens, anything happens here, I will tell you the first step is going to be IDing everybody. In other words, they want to know who's in the country because they need to know, because if you're not on the new ID program, then you're some sneaky terrorist. So watch out for the next 6 to 8 months. I mean, they're already, ladies and gentlemen, giving Iranian folks a hard time when they're coming into the country, normally like they would on vacation or whatever they're doing. And it's already starting to, happen. So, but I wanted to bring this AI conversation back to the table, because I think there's some important information here in this particular piece here. And this isn't brand new, but it's probably going to be information that'll be new to a lot of people. So, mine's Jimmy.
Today you tell me something y mañana otra cosa. Nobody that I can depend on.
China has decided to chase the AI future.
The difference between the internet mindset and the AI mindset.
A future made and embraced by a new generation.
Well, it's hard not to feel the kind of immense energy and also the obvious fact of the demographics. They're mostly very younger people. So that this clearly is technology which is being generated by a whole new generation.
Orville Schell is one of America's foremost China scholars. He first came here 45 years ago.
When I first came here in 1975, the Chairman Mao was still alive, the Cultural Revolution was coming on, and there wasn't a single whiff of anything of what you see here. It was unimaginable. In fact, in those years, one very much thought, this is the way China is, this is the way it's going to be, and the fact that it has gone through so many different changes since is quite extraordinary.
This extraordinary progress goes back to that game of Go.
I think that the government recognized that this was a sort of critical thing for the future, and we need to catch up in this, that, we cannot have a foreign company showing us up at our own game, and this is going to be something that is going to be critically important in the future. So, we called it the Sputnik Moment for the Chinese government. The Chinese government kind of woke up.
As we often say in China, the beginning is the most difficult part.
In 2017, Xi Jinping announced the government's bold new plans to an audience of foreign diplomats. China would catch up with the U.S. in artificial intelligence by 2025 and lead the world by 2030.
And intensify cooperation in frontier areas such as digital economy, artificial intelligence, nanotechnology, and quantum computing.
Today, China leads the world in e-commerce. Drones delivered to rural villages. And a society that bypassed credit cards now shops in stores without cashiers, where the currency is facial recognition.
No country has ever moved that fast. And in the short 2.5 years, China's AI implementation really went from minimal amount to probably about 17 or 18 unicorns, that is billion-dollar companies in AI today. And that progress is hard to believe.
The progress was powered by a new generation of ambitious young techs pouring out of Chinese universities, competing with each other for new ideas, and financed by a new cadre of Chinese venture capitalists. This is Evasion, created by U.S.-educated AI scientists.
I just want to pop in here real quick because here's the thing. China, they just do what they're going to do. And so for a company to have the ability to go into China and offer their technology to China, whereas it may be an intrusive technology or a technology that we wouldn't abide by here in the United States, they can freely go over to China. And if China just decides they want to go facial recognition and full digital currency, that's just a decision they make. And they just say that's the way it is. And people do it. So the thing is that all of this stuff that's running, this stuff that we're going to be pulling the chunk out of here that we're talking about tonight is exactly what's coming in the future. So they're running the pilot program over there. Now, when I did the 1979 retrospective, I did, there's about 40 minutes about the China interview, the China visit. And in that visit, the Chinese premier says that he wants to make China the industrial center for the rest of the world. He straight up says it. That's been the plan the whole time. Mission accomplished. And now, your technology and your ability to innovate, exponentially gets better as you start developing technology. So, they are where they are, and then look how fast they've moved forward from almost nothing to where they are now.
Businessman Kai-Fu Lee.
Well, these unicorns, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in in the general AI area. And unicorn means $1 billion company, a company whose valuation or market capitalization is at $1 billion or higher. I think we put 2 unicorns to show $5 billion or higher.
Kai-Fu Lee was born in Taiwan. His parents sent him to high school in Tennessee. His PhD thesis at Carnegie Mellon was on computer speech recognition, which took him to Apple.
Well, reality is a step closer to science fiction with Apple Computer's new developed program that allows.
And at 31, an early measure of fame.
And Kai-Fu Lee, the inventor of Apple speech recognition technology.
Casper copied this to make right too. Casper paste. Casper 72-point italic outline.
He would move on to Microsoft Research in Asia and became the head of Google China. 10 years ago, he started Sinovation in Beijing and began looking for promising startups and AI talent.
So the Chinese entrepreneurial companies started as copycats, but over the last 15 years, China has developed its own form of entrepreneurship. And that entrepreneurship is described as tenacious, very fast, winner-take-all, and incredible work ethic. I would say these a few thousand Chinese top entrepreneurs, they could take on any entrepreneur anywhere in the world.
Entrepreneurs like Cao Shudong, the 33-year-old CEO of a new startup called Momenta. This is a ring road around Beijing. The car is driving itself.
You see another cutting.
Cao has no doubt about the inevitability of autonomous vehicles.
Just like AlphaGo can beat the human player in Go, I think the machine will definitely surpass the human driver in the end.
Recently, there have been cautions about how soon autonomous vehicles will be deployed. But Cao and his team are confident they're in for the long haul.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Jimmy. It's Into the Microcosmos Revolution Radio, and what we're getting into is the future. And see, the future is already in place. It's already in play in China. Our near-term future is already being displayed right here. Most of us are too busy running around doing our daily lives and shopping and doing all the stuff to really get a grip on exactly what's going on. But incrementally, it's going to be instituted here. And I'm telling you, if something goes wrong, there's going to be a call for a new ID system, and it's coming up here on the facial recognition company. So we're going to keep going here. We're going to trudge on. We're going to hack our way through this AI jungle to try to see if there's a shiny city on the hill waiting for us there. And we're also going to get, like I said, in the second hour, we're going to get to the interview we did with Zoltan, the transhumanist presidential candidate. If you didn't get a chance to hear it on Friday, I'm going to replay it here in the second hour coming up. But in the meantime, let's get on with it.
U.S. will be the first to deploy, but China may be the first to popularize. It's 50-50 right now. U.S. is ahead in technology. China has a larger market, and the Chinese government is helping with infrastructure efforts. For example, building a new city the size of Chicago with autonomous driving enabled, and also a new highway that has sensors built in to help autonomous vehicle be safer.
Their early investors included Mercedes-Benz.
I feel very lucky and very inspiring and very exciting that we're living in this era.
Life in China is largely conducted on smartphones. 1 billion people use WeChat, the equivalent of Facebook, Messenger, and PayPal, and much more combined into just one super app. And there are many more.
China is the best place for AI implementation today because the vast amount of data that's available in China. China has a lot more users than any other country, 3 to 4 times more than the US. There are 50 times more mobile payments than the US. There are 10 times more food deliveries which serve as data to learn more about user behavior than the US. 300 times more shared bicycle rides. And each shared bicycle ride has all kinds of sensors submitting data up to the cloud. We're talking about maybe 10.
Uh-oh. Trouble on the horizon. I got it covered, though. There's a commercial running. My name's Jimmy. We're getting into the AI in a few moments here. I'm going to get back to it. But let's see here. Yeah, here we go. Hang on a second. Whoop. Here we go.
Run on data and fueled by data. The more data, the better the AI works. More importantly than how brilliant the researcher is working on the problem. So in the age of AI, where data is the new oil, China is the new Saudi Arabia.
Bingo, because there are 300 million people that are sitting in their middle class is the same size as the whole population of the United States. So the amount of people and the demographic that they get, all this information pouring in, the way people adapt to the technology, the way people decide which one of these apps they're going to use. I mean, they go through all these chunks and pieces until they whittle it down to something, and they're going to show up in the United States with a brand new system. Watch.
And access to all that data means that the deep learning algorithm can quickly predict behavior, like the creditworthiness of someone wanting a short-term loan.
Here is our application, and the customer can choose how many money they want to borrow and how long they want to borrow, and they can input their data here, and after that, you can just borrow very quickly.
The CEO shows us how quickly you can get a loan.
It has done.
It takes an average of 8 seconds.
It has passed to banks. Wow. Yeah, our job is finished.
In the 8 seconds, the algorithm has assessed 5,000 personal features from all your data.
5,000 features. That is related with the delinquency. When maybe the banks only use few, maybe 10 features when they are doing their risk management.
Processing millions of transactions, it'll dig up features that would never be apparent to a human loan officer. Like how confidently you type your loan application. Or, surprisingly, if you keep your cell phone battery charged.
It's very interesting. The battery of the phone is related with their delinquency rate. Someone who has much more lower battery, they get much more dangerous than others.
It's probably unfathomable to an American how a country can dramatically.
So if you're the type of person running around with a little bit of battery life, you might be a deadbeat, according to that guy.
Evolve itself from a copycat laggard to all of a sudden to nearly as good as the U.S. in technology.
Like this facial recognition startup he invested in. McVie was started by 3 young graduates in 2011.
Okay, pay attention to this company. And if you're somebody that likes to invest, this might be one you might want to check out.
It's now a world leader in using AI to identify people.
It's pretty fast. For example, on the mobile device, we have timed the facial recognition speed. It's actually less than 100 milliseconds. So that's very, very fast. So 0.1 second that we'll be able to recognize you, even on a mobile device.
The company claims the system is better than any human at identifying people in its database. And for those who aren't, it can describe them. Like our director, what he's wearing, and a good guess at his age, missing it by only a few months.
We are the first one to really take facial recognition to commercial quality.
That's why in Beijing today you can pay for your KFC with a smile.
it's not so surprising. We've seen the Chinese companies catching up to the U.S. in technology for a long time. And so if particular effort and attention is paid in a specific sector, it's not so surprising that they would surpass the rest of the world. And facial recognition is one of the first places we've seen that start to happen.
It's a technology prized by the government, like this program in Shenzhen to discourage jaywalking. Offenders are shamed in public, and with facial recognition, can be instantly fined. Critics warn that the government and some private companies have been building a national database from dozens of experimental social credit programs.
The government wants to integrate all these individual behaviors or corporations' records into some kind of a matrix and compute out a single number or set of number associated with an individual, a citizen, and using that to implement a incentive or punishment system.
A high social credit number can be rewarded with discounts on bus fares. A low number can lead to a travel ban. Some say it's very popular with the Chinese public that wants to punish bad behavior. Others see a future that rewards party loyalty and silences criticism.
Right now, there is no final system being implemented. And from those experiments, we already see the possibility of what this social credit system can do to individual. It's very powerful, Orwellian-like, and it's extremely troublesome in terms of civil liberty.
Every evening in Shanghai, ever-present cameras record the crowds as they surge down to the Bund, the promenade along the banks of the Huangpu River. Once, the great trading houses of Europe came here to do business with the Middle Kingdom. In the last century, they were all shut down by Mao's revolution. But now, in the age of AI, people come here to take in a spectacle that reflects China's remarkable progress and illuminates the great political paradox of capitalism taken root in the communist state.